Hello, everybody, and welcome to Common Sense with Curtis Scott. And I'm here today with Ken Lundberg, who's running for judge of Ellis County 443rd District Court. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, doing great. It's good to have you on today. If you could just give us a little intro or a little bio of who you are.
Okay. Well, first off, thanks for having me. My name is Ken Lundberg, and I'm running for judge of the 443rd District Court here in Ellis County. I grew up right here in Ellis County. Graduated from Midlothian High School, which is where I met my wife, Rebecca. After that, I went to the University of Texas for undergrad and SMU for law school. I started practicing as an attorney here in Midlothian, and that was for a number of years. As an attorney, I really kind of saw our office as a small town office. I handled all kinds of cases that walked through the door, but my primary focus practice areas were family and criminal litigation. But here, currently, I'm serving the citizens of Ellis County as an associate district court judge for the 378th District Court. That's the first associate judge that Ellis County's ever had. The position was created because of all the overflow that court has been experiencing. And since I've been brought on, it's been wildly successful. On a personal note, most importantly, I'm a father and a husband. And I consider myself an avid outdoorsman. Some of our favorite things to do as a family is to take our little bumper pole camper out to some of our state parks around here, the great state of Texas, and spend a few nights by the campfire. But that's me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you telling us who you are. So you said you're actually acting as a judge right now.
Yes, sir, I am.
And so the 378 that was created. So is that an elected judge position too? Like will be up for election soon, or is that just something appointed?
No. So I'm an associate judge for the 378 District Court. It's an appointed position. I work for Judge Wallace. He is the elected district court judge in the 378.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I know a lot of voters out there don't know near as much even as I do, and I've been in law enforcement for majority of my life. So that's where I like to clarify. And some of the questions we'll be asking today will just be some clarifying questions, things like that. But the first thing I'd like to ask you, though, is why are you running for Ellis County 443rd District Judge?
Why am I running? Well, I decided to run first and foremost because I care about this community. This is where I grew up. This is where I started my career. This is where my wife, Rebecca, and I chose to start our family. And when the position became an open bench, I really jumped at the opportunity to give back and serve the community in which I live. But on top of that, in serving as an associate judge, I've really learned how to manage a docket and how to run and operate a courtroom efficiently. And so I really think I would be the best person for this position. So in short, I'm running because I want to serve my community, and I think I'd be the best person for this job.
Okay. So that actually runs into my next question.
Okay.
So if you could kind of explain, though, what really, what do you feel makes you best candidate for the judge of District 443? If you could really just put that in a nutshell, what makes you the best candidate?
Sure. So I'm uniquely qualified for this position because I'm the only candidate who is currently serving as a judge. So I have firsthand knowledge of all the work that we have to do down at the courthouse. Since taking the bench, I've handled cases for all three of the district courts here in Ellis County. I presided over a number of different types of cases. I've presided over family dockets, criminal dockets, juvenile dockets, civil dockets, mental health dockets. And I think that our system needs a utility player who can assist all our courts in moving cases. In addition to that, I'm already pitching in and helping in the 443rd. That court right now is experiencing an extreme backlog and overflow of cases. And so I've already taken it upon myself to carve out time in my schedule at the 378 to handle dockets for the 443rd so that they can process all the overflow that's going through. But in addition to that, I'd also say that not only have I been a judge, I've also spent time as an attorney. People have trusted me to hire me to represent them in their legal disputes. And I think sitting on the bench, it really gives you the benefit of being able to view cases from multiple different perspectives. So you can ultimately give each case the consideration that it deserves.
Okay. Well, that kind of runs a little bit into what I was going to ask next. And that is, can you explain the role of the Ellis County 443rd District Judge? You spoke a little bit about what you've been doing, but if you could just explain, because a lot of people out there, a lot of the voters don't know what all a judge does. They think that they just go up and sit on a trial, and that's all they do. But if you could explain what is the role.
Okay. So to give kind of a high level overview, the 443rd District Court is one of 3 district courts that we have in Ellis County. We have the 40th, the 378th, and the 443rd. And the cases are divided between those 3 courts essentially by agreement between the judges. So the judges get together and they decide which court is going to handle what cases. And that's usually based off, the experience of the judges and overall caseload. So currently the 443rd is serving as an adult felony court, okay, which is different than the 40th, which is currently serving as a civil court, and the 378th, which is a family and juvenile criminal court. So in the 443rd, it's an adult felony court. It'll handle cases anywhere ranging from drug possession cases all the way up until murder cases, okay? And so probably the biggest job for whoever takes that bench is going to be working through the backlog in that court. Because our county it's growing by leaps and bounds. We're experiencing growing pains, and that's translating more and more cases being filed in our judicial system. Last year, there were almost double the amount of cases filed in the 443rd compared to the year prior. I think the number was close to 2,100 cases in 2023 filed in that court, whereas in the 22, I think there was closer to 1,200 cases. So whoever takes that bench has got to have a plan to work through that backlog.
Okay, so you mentioned like the significant role okay, so this question here, you mentioned a little bit about this, but if you could just really, what do you believe is the most significant role of the judge?
Okay.
Like if you could put it in one little nutshell, you mentioned a little bit of some of the roles, but what would be the most significant thing that the judge does?
Okay. So the most significant thing for whoever takes this bench is going to be to come up with a plan to work through all the excess cases that have been filed in that court. There's, I think there's about, close to 3,400 cases currently pending right now. And really what needs to happen is we need to cut down the time it's taking to get to trial. Okay. That's going to be the most significant thing that the judge can do, because in some cases it's taking close to 2 years to get a case to trial. And defense attorneys are telling their clients, well, they can't, get to your case for 2 years. And the truth is, in a criminal court, in a felony court, most cases are resolved by what we call a plea bargain, okay, or some type of agreement between the defense and the state. And right now, there's just no incentive for people to take any of those deals, because they could easily kick the can down the road and not have to worry about it for 2 years, at which time then maybe they want to work the case out. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want to take it to trial. But the judge, if they can cut down the time it's taking to get to that final trial, then it's going to force people to make some hard decisions. And I think it's going to help clear out the docket.
Okay, that's awesome. So, I've interviewed the DAs or people that are running as candidates and the current DA, and they talk about all the cases, everything like that. So, because one of the big focuses of the DA is to get those cases heard and everything, or pled out, so the judge can have a significant role in that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that you actually answered the next question a little bit already, so you're on your game here. But approximately how many cases does the court handle in a year? And you just said about 2,100, something like that, for the last year.
There were 2,100 cases filed last year. Okay. And the year before there was closer to 1,200 cases. Okay. And the goal of the court to be operating efficiently, you need to process more cases than are filed. Otherwise, there's going to be an inherent backlog.
Yeah.
And so I might sound like a broken record, but that's going to be the number one task for whoever gets on the bench.
So yeah, that's what I'm, you said plea bargaining. If you could explain a little bit too, for people that are viewing this, the voters out there, what exactly plea bargaining, that you're not just dropping cases, but what is a plea bargain?
Right. Okay. So when I say we need to work through the backlog, I'm not talking about, giving someone a slap on the wrist and letting them go on their way. When a case is filed, there's an initial process where after in a felony case, it goes to grand jury and they come back with a true bill, which means that the case is going to go forward and get filed. The defense attorney has an opportunity to kind of review the state's evidence, okay, to see if they're going to be able to essentially prove their case, which has to be beyond a reasonable doubt in the criminal context, okay. And in reviewing that case, okay, the attorneys might look at it and they might say, well, this type of offense, this person may not have ever been in trouble before, so they might be a good candidate for probation, say, okay. Or they might say, okay, well, this person's a repeat offender, and therefore we're going to recommend a higher punishment, okay. So therein lies the rub of the kind of room, to negotiate based off of, one, how strong you evaluate the case, and then two, kind of taking into consideration the person's history and background and likelihood to reoffend, because that's ultimately what we don't want to happen, right? So I think that cutting down that trial time essentially forces people to have that conversation sooner, right? Instead of waiting 2 years before they even think critically about what their options are and what they're looking at.
Yeah. So how many of those cases do you know actually go to court? Like out of that 2,100, 1,200, the 1 year, is there a percentage that roughly go? Or
I couldn't, off the top of my head, I'd have to say probably around 90-95% of the cases are resolved by what we're calling a plea bargain or agreement between the defense and the state, and then the rest go to trial, and that's an important part of the process as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, a lot, like I said earlier, a lot of people don't know what plea bargain means. A lot of people, and that's why I do this Common Sense with Curtis Scott, because I've been a police officer since 1998. And when I started police work, I had no clue what all this stuff meant. I mean, and you learn as you go, right? And so a lot of people that here in Ellis County, especially, I think, don't hear all this stuff because they've never committed a crime. They've never been to court. And that's where I just wanted to clarify. I really appreciate you clarifying that. So that kind of moves us on, though. You talked about the plea bargain and, working a deal out. So I came from Dallas County, working there for 8 years in Irving PD. And one of the things we saw was there were some judges that would just drop charges. And you've seen that happening across the country. And that's what the next question is. Would you ever support not accepting or dropping certain types of charges?
Okay. So as a judge, I believe in personal responsibility, okay, which means that people ultimately need to be held accountable for their actions. Unfortunately, in other jurisdictions, we see judges or district attorneys deciding that they don't want to pursue certain types of cases. But the role of a judge is to follow the law. Even if you don't agree with the law or you don't like the law, you have to follow it, okay? Here in Ellis County, we need to keep Ellis County safe. And the way we're going to do that is by following the law here. That's why people are moving here, because they want a community where they can raise their family and be safe. That's why we're not dealing with the same problems that you see in some of the major metropolitan areas. And so I think the number one role of a judge is to follow the law, which means you cannot dismiss cases out of hand just because you don't like that. You don't agree with the law, essentially. That's not the role of a judge.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen it firsthand. I had a judge that pretty sure it was just a disagreement between a prosecutor and a judge, and me being an officer literally came to court that day and they just dropped the charge. And I'm like, what for? Like, I had all the evidence, everything. And I was like, it makes no sense that you just let a guy go, but that's a Dallas guy. So that leads me though, to the next question. This is going to be our final question, and it's a two-part question. And it's, do you believe the Constitution / the Bill of Rights are the supreme law of the land? And what is their significance for the judge of the 443rd District Court?
Okay. All right. I like the question. Okay. So as an associate judge, I've taken an oath, and that oath is to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the United States and of the state of Texas. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights in particular is part and parcel of being it's a huge part of the job. Okay. because people have a Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay, so if evidence was improperly obtained, it's not coming into court. Okay, people have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Okay, so in the context of a criminal case, you can't force a defendant to testify, and you can't hold it against them if they choose not to testify. Okay, the Sixth Amendment guarantees people rights to a speedy trial. I'll take you back to the backlog that I previously described in our court system. That's why that issue is so important. But all those amendments, taken into consideration, another part that is particularly important to me that's enshrined in the Constitution is the general concept of limited government. Okay, the role of a judge is to strictly adhere to the letter of the law. Okay, and far too often these days do we find activist judges seeking to essentially advance their own agenda. Okay, that's not the role of a judge, and that's not what's enshrined in the Constitution when we have a system of limited government based on the rule of law.
Oh, that's awesome. So for me, Common Sense with Curtis Scott started basically in 2020 when I started seeing all the things happen in our nation. And common sense comes from the Thomas Paine pamphlet that started helped start the American Revolution. And so that's a big part. I don't call myself a constitutionalist, but I really believe that our Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And I've just seen so much of what you just talked about with judges and other folks that have tried to use their position, and they act like the Constitution isn't a solid document that means what it says, and they try to interpret it to their own means. So anyway, I know this wasn't a real long interview or anything like that. I tried, like I said earlier, talking to you. I keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method. But I want to give you a little time frame here, or not a time frame, but a small window here. You can spend, 5 minutes or so, whatever, to just kind of talk to the voters out there, tell them a little bit more why they should vote for you. If you have any points there, it's your time to shine here.
Okay. All right. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Okay. I won't take too much more of your time, but I think just to kind of wrap things up, I'm the only candidate in the race who's currently serving as a judge. So I know firsthand all the work that needs to be done down at the courthouse, and my time spent as an associate judge has taught me how to manage a docket and run a courtroom efficiently. And that's what we need to happen. Since taking the bench in the 378th, we've been able to cut down the time it's taking to get to temporary hearings, which has ultimately cut down the time it's taking to get to final trial in that court. These are the same principles that we need to apply in the 443rd. We need to cut down the time it's taking to get to trial so that we can work through this backlog. My experience as an associate judge means I'm going to be ready to hit the ground running day one when elected. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Ellis County as an associate judge, and it's really my desire to continue to serve from the district bench. That's why I'm running for the 443rd District Court. So I look forward to seeing everyone at the polls on March 5th, and just remember to vote Ken Lundberg for the 443rd District Court.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I just want to do a little final shout out to everybody and say thank you for you coming on. But also to everybody all the viewers out there, if you're a voter, please go out and vote. The early voting, when does it start?
February the 20th. And the last day to register, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but the last day to register is February the 5th. So if anyone needs to get that done, then the time is fast approaching.
Yes, very short time left. But if you can, click, like, share, all that good stuff. I mean, it'll help people. I say this all the time, and, we're just talking about with Common Sense how it started. People need to hear the voices of who's running for whatever office it is, because we just really don't have that out there, and a lot of people don't know. And I really thank you for coming on for that reason. But like I said, again, if you can just vote, go out and make sure you vote, but share this, click the like, the share, all that good stuff. But thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks again.
All right. You have a good afternoon, good evening.
You as well.